Alrighty, web devs, welcome to the second day in our series of learning how to transfer a WordPress site. All we did in our first series was look at how to install WordPress with Fantastico, which is super easy. We know how to do that. And we learned about a new plugin, the dummy content plugin for WordPress, that gave us all of these dummy pages, which is great. And we uploaded a photo gallery with just some generic photos so that we could look at how WordPress handles transferring photos and their locations. So what we're going to do today is look at how to actually back up WordPress. And I want to start by exploring something that I honestly haven't worked with too much, but there are some automated backup plugins that work within WordPress to do some of this work for you. So we're going to log into our control panels. And once we log in, let's go to Add New Plugins, and let's take a look around at these backup plugins that exist for WP. So I'm just going to type in backup. And going through this search, let's see what we've got. So WordPress Easy Backup is an administrator plugin that allows the easiest, most feature-rich method for backing up archives of your entire site, not just the WP installations, but any part of your site or web space, and allows backup archives of any database you choose and more. There's also this one, Xcloner, is a backup and restore component for PHP and MySQL websites, and it can work as a plugin. So this looks like it will back up your whole system and re-upload it for you. And then we've got WP Database Backup, which allows you to easily back up your core WordPress database tables and other tables as well. Now, we're not going to actually use these just because I haven't tested them, but I bet that as you start going that there are some pretty good WordPress backups. But what I'm going to show you is the nuts and bolts, most basic level, kind of the hardest way, but also the way that is guaranteed not to break due to a plugin. So I'd suggest going around and playing with these in the future, and maybe we could do that at the very end after we successfully transfer. But the first thing that we would do is we would, as some of these are referring to, is back up the actual database. So we can install one of these plugins to do it for us, although I think it would be good for us to get an idea of what the database really looks like and how do we back up a database that isn't tied to WordPress. So if you come into your cPanel accounts, we're going to be looking at a part of it called PHP My Admin. So search and find PHP My Admin and click through to that. It'll redirect you into another application, open in another window. And here's the interface for PHP My Admin. This is one of the most powerful open source softwares that exists for interacting with a MySQL database. It's also one of the most poorly designed. So we know that some computer scientists or developers built it because it works great and looks, well. What we need to look at are these columns over on the left-hand side, and notice that we have all of the databases on our server listed here. And I have a Cake PHP one, a CodeIgniter one for contacts, a demo one, and a WordPress 1, 2, and 3. When we were doing the installation, I said, pay careful attention to that little note that said that it automatically created a new WordPress database for you. Click on the last one, the third one. And then what we could see are all the tables of the database. So inside this posts table, for example, we'd find all of our posts. Underneath the user table, we'd find all of our users. Hey, guess what you'd find in the links table? Comments? Comments. I think you guys are brilliant, so we can move forward. Across the top here, let's click on the Export tab. And by default, in the first part of this export panel, it should have all of the different tables selected. If you only wanted to back up your posts for some reason or just your user data, you could do that, but it should have all of them selected by default. Notice then that it has a bunch of different file formats that you could use to export it as, and you do not want to change this setting unless you're specifically told to by some application that you're working with, but we want a straight SQL file here. On the right-hand side, we're not going to change anything. And at the bottom, we're going to make sure that it says Save as File, because otherwise it will just display the entire SQL on the screen there, and you'd have to copy and paste it and create a file, etc. So it's just going to automatically save this file for us once we click Go. So let's click Go. No, just leave it as it is. You could compress it and zip it, but since we want to just upload it directly, then we'd have to unzip it and go through that process. So just save your backup database file to a place where you can find it again. And let's go find this file now on our computer, and we're not going to look at it, but we are going to do something with it so that we have it better archived for what we're going to do next. I'm going to navigate into my computer here. And inside of my documents, I have a transfer folder where everything downloads. And we should have that file as a SQL file right there. I'm going to move this into my sites folder. Hopefully you guys have a folder somewhere that has all of the files that you've built, and I'm just going to move this over to my folder that I have set up for this class and this project. Notice the naming of it. It should be your username or your login username, underscore, and then the title of the file. That's fine, but we want to rename it, and we're going to add to it before transfer. And what this will allow us to do is have a backup of the database that has all of the information before we try to change the site name and change the location. So we're going to need to put this in some safe folder and save it. So I'll just go in inside of public HTML. Let's create a new folder. And our site was called test-old WP, and I'm just going to add backup to that. So test old WP backup, and then drag your SQL file in and make sure that it's inside of that folder. So now that we have the database backed up, we need to back up all of the files. And this can be a long process, but what it's going to involve is going into something like Smart FTP and FTPing into your account. And then we're literally just going to back up all of our files, and we're going to put them into the same folder that we put our SQL file. So I have my test old WP backup folder, and then I'm going to go into my server, find my testing old WP folder, and I need to take all of these files and back it up. And it's just going to be a Control A. Actually, you know what, it might be easier just to drag the whole folder down. So from the root, I'm just going to take this whole folder and drag it over. And hopefully my computer doesn't crash in the meantime because I've overgone my disk allocation space. If you have a flash drive, you might just want to do that. Once we download this, we're going to zip it and keep it compressed. But we can't zip it until we download it using this process. So just drag it over, and in about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how long our connection takes, it will be downloaded. So we'll pause the video here, and then when we come back, we should have it downloaded, and we'll look at our setup then. Okay, so what we have now is we have a folder that says test old WP backup, and we have a file in it that is our SQL file, and we have a folder in it that is the entire website that we have all backed up and everything. So to explain again what the purpose of this is going to stand as our backup for the site to work on our development server. What we're going to have to do next is go in and make some changes to WordPress and then re-backup everything just like we did. But that backup is going to be a backup for the new server. And once we transfer the entire site to the new server, we're going to have to go back to this original old backup and reinstall it on our server so that it works. So the next step that we're going to take is we're going to go into WordPress, change the URL for our new site, and then we're going to do the exact same backup process of backing up the database and the files. So to get ourselves ready, let's just create a new folder here called test new WP backup. And then we'll go back into the WordPress control panel. And let's come down to the settings setting under general. And here you will find a setting that says WordPress URL and site address. And again, this was reminiscent of WordPress sometimes being stored in a different folder. 99% of the time, these are going to be the same addresses, both the WordPress address and the site address. The only difference would be is if you have, well, whatever. It's going to be the same. So all we're going to do is we're going to, instead of having ours be at testing old WP, we're going to have it be at testing new WP. So just come in here and type the word new in both places, and then go and save the changes to this file. And once you save those changes, you should be logged out of the account. And I'm getting an actual error here. And let's look at what we've got. First of all, go back in your browser to testing-old-WP. And you'll notice that it doesn't look quite right. If we try to click on links, it's going to try to take us to the testing new location. And since we don't have any folder called testing new WP, it's giving us a 404 error. So what this tells us is that the site is now either you could say broken, or you could say it's ready for transition. So we'll repeat the same steps we did before, and we're going to come into our PHP MyAdmin. And I just clicked on the actual database again, and I'm going back to the export page just so that I make sure that it refreshes and isn't exporting old data. But click on one or two links and then click on export again. And let's go ahead and back up this file again. So we'll do the same thing and just click go, save file. And once again, we'll go get this file. And I'm going to move it into my testing new WP backup. I'm going to paste it in, and then let's rename it. How'd we name the old one? Old backup or new testing backup? Or we just said old backup, right? So let's call this one new-backup. And now we have our files ready to go, our database file there ready to go. The next step then is, because WordPress will have made some changes to the actual file inside of WordPress, we have to go back to our server and re-download the entire site again. So I'm going to go back to my server. I'm going to navigate locally into my new WP backup folder with my new WP SQL file. And I'm going to, once again, take that whole testing old WP folder and I'm going to drag it in and back it up. And again, the difference is that now all of the links and all the files should be pointing to the new server. So let's go ahead and back that up, and then we'll stop here with this video, and then the next one we'll look at how to upload this the files and get the content working on the new WordPress site.